Gold Squad TV. So, the Slaughterhouse situation. Crook and Joell just made a song called Vacancy, pretty much explaining how they feel about the Slaughterhouse situation and how they're putting the Slaughterhouse group to rest once and for all, considering that Royce and Joe are no longer active members of the crew. Joe Budden took exception to it, being the man who created the group, took exception to it on his podcast, wanted to really say what he wanted to say, but Ice and Ish basically calmed him down to kind of like try to calm him down so he wouldn't really express too much of what he really felt. Let's just say he was mad at his brothers, the Slaughterhouse brothers. And then Royce also took to Twitter to express his displeasure with how things were said based on their truths, even though it wasn't malicious on Royce's part. Royce is not feeling it, for lack of a better word. Now, Joe hasn't rapped since 2017. He's been retired. And he left the group while the group was making the third album, Glass House. Now, shouts to Eminem, but we all know Eminem has nothing really to do with the business dealings of Shady. He's just a surname. The Shady name is just a surname. But we all know that Paul Rosenberg runs Shady. And we all know that Royce brokered that deal once he squashed beef with M to get Slaughterhouse on Shady. Now, we all know the first album on Shady didn't do well. It might have did well in numbers, but the album, content-wise, was pretty bad. Outside of Hammer Dance and My Life with CeeLo Green from Goody Mob, the rest of the album suffered. Sound-wise, it wasn't the Slaughterhouse sound of the first album. The first Slaughterhouse album was fire. But that was done on E1, which was Joe's decision, because Joe originally was the one that started the group, and he got them to deal with E1. We all know that Slaughterhouse started on Halfway House on Joe's mixtape, which featured Dino Bless as well, but he was not part of the group. That said, listen, I'm gonna give my opinion in a few minutes, but let me just say this. It's sad that Slaughterhouse couldn't really get together a big one last hurrah, but we all know that Joe was disgruntled with the business, and for lack of a better word, he didn't get along with Eminem, which is nothing new. I kind of felt like those two would clash, and he definitely didn't get along with Paul Rosenberg, which pretty much killed that situation the minute he left the group. Royce, on the other hand, although he loved Joe, him and Joe pretty much clashed business-wise, I guess, in a sense, based on ideals, which leads to Joell and Crook, who pretty much were the quiet ones in the group that really didn't say much about it. I mean, Crook kind of alluded to it at certain points in times, a little bit after Slaughterhouse was kind of like out the books. But yeah, this to me, when Joell and Crook did the record, they definitely were really taking shots at Joe and Royce. Probably more Joe than Royce. Royce has been MIA since the Lupe fiasco, Mickey Fax situation over the summer, where he pretty much got left to be massacred after he said some stupid shit on IG. All due respect to Royce, he did not look good in that situation and has been pretty much MIA, quiet as a church mouse outside of a couple of interviews that he's done. So, yeah, that pretty much explains that situation. So he's really not said much. I expect him to respond, maybe on record. I don't think he's going to be malicious about it, but then again, if he doesn't respond, didn't respond to Lupe and Mickey. I do know he's working with DJ Premier on that next Prime album, which nobody's really asking for. No disrespect, but I loved the first Prime album, hated the second one. The second one really made Premier look bad. In my opinion, it was not the best Premier project produced, but that's a whole nother ball game. in time here. This was inevitable, man. This breakup was inevitable. The way it went down was inevitable. I guess there was a lot of Zoom meetings, a lot of things, like Joe said on the show. Everybody had different visions, but he didn't expect Crook and Joell to jump out the window and do what they just did, which now has Joe seething in anger, and Royce is just pretty much like, I'm done with it. Like, you don't really see outside of his reaction. Royce is kind of just like whatever. But yeah, it's sad, man. Paul Rosenberg kind of fucked it up. I was not a fan of, all due respect to Eminem, and in no way, shape, or form am I mad at him, because he, like I said, he doesn't really control the business part of that. He just makes the approvals. But in reality, at the end of the day, Paul Rosenberg did no favors for them, the way he didn't do any favors for Griselda. They were the first example before Griselda signed here. Did them no favors. Somebody just didn't read the D12 pamphlet of how bad that could end. M's not a businessman. You can't expect him to be. He's got too many things at hand. He's got other things that he's doing. So he's really more into the music part of it. So he wants nothing to do with business. So when it all comes down to it, at the end of the day, somebody just disagreed on business. Multiple people did in the group, and they had different visions for what the group is supposed to be. And the two dudes making records right now seem like the most hip-hop of the four, because they just want to make records and they just want to make the fans happy. They don't really give a shit about personal riffs and stuff like that, where the other two kind of like egos got kind of caught up. You got to remember, Royce and Joe were older. They were the older two in the group. They were more experienced. They were Crook and Joell were the younger two of the group. So that said, I'm gonna give my opinion. My opinion is, I think they would have been fine. They would have dropped enough albums. They probably could have signed to a major for one last album had they got about 3 or 4 projects in, but it didn't work out. They signed to Shady, and I knew as soon as, I never forget being at that gas station with my uncle and sitting there telling them that's not gonna work. It's them signing to Shady. It's not gonna work. Paul Rosenberg's not gonna know. Rosenberg's not gonna know how to promote them, especially in that climate. We're talking 2012, y'all. It's a different time. Hip hop wasn't about hardcore hip hop, and at that time, you weren't really hearing much hardcore hip hop outside of the underground scene. So, their name's Slaughterhouse. You're not gonna go and have them do corny music like they did on that album, which they did. The third album was supposed to be a masterpiece. I heard a few songs off it, based on little snippets they've played, each member has played. Album would have been bananas had it came out, but it was just too much record label politics, and then Joe being Joe. So at the end of the day, man, we see a lot of these super groups don't last. The Horsemen dropped a project just a year ago after having their problems, but you were hoped that there would be a happy ending the way that situation went. And I think Joell and Crook monitored that situation and seen how they ended up getting back together to do whatever they needed to do. But apparently it didn't work that way with Joe. Joe was not going to get out of retirement. Royce is in a weird space right now. I don't know what's going on with Royce. Like I said, he's been MIA. Like, you ever see the Bill Carton? It says missing in action. Don't know he's kidnapped. Don't know where he's at. Royce is on that Bill Carton. I have not seen Royce or heard Royce for a very long time. That's about 8 months of no music coming out from Royce. Yeah, it's different. Royce has always been super active. So I don't know if he's really going to some personal stuff or anything. I don't know that man personally. So if he is, man, I hope he gets better and gets past it, whatever he's going through, and more power to him, because, regardless of how I felt about the Mickey Fax Lupe situation, I grew up on Royce da 5'9". I can't deny that. So, Gold Squad TV, leave a like, subscribe. Let me know what you guys think of the crooked eye Joell Ortiz shots being taken at Joe and Royce. Gold Squad TV, signing off.